this. I don't understand. Like, I certainly wouldn't want it to be closer. There's no reason for it to be quieter, but the monitors are showing that it's really quiet for some reason. I guess we'll just go with it. Yeah, I guess we're just gonna go with it, and then if people start telling me that I'm super quiet, then I'll change it. Otherwise, I don't know what else I can do. I don't think. Let me see something here. I don't know, this is a really stupid opening. I should probably be screwing with this stuff before I start live, but hey, you know. I don't know what I would do. I don't know how else I could modify this to make it a bit louder and better for us here. Because I feel like it's showing that it's going too quiet. Just add that and see if that helps it at all. No, that doesn't help. Alright, well, I guess I'm just going to try it. We'll just try it and we'll see what happens. You can always turn it down the volume if I'm too quiet. I think there's a line for speakers no, that doesn't do anything. Alright, yeah, and it could just be that this microphone is finally giving out after so much use and abuse. So, alright, well, we'll just go with it and we'll see what we can do. Hello, this is EnviroBoy here, and this is my channel. We're going to try and do some streaming today. If my mic is going to be getting in the way of doing that well, then maybe change of plans until I can figure out what I'm going to do for an alternate mic, because I don't really have anything that would be as good as this one. So, hey, how's it going, Talkert? Glad to see you here. Is the mic strange? Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on with my mic today. I think it's something with the mic itself, because I've tried resetting and doing stuff. Is it like strange as in you can't understand what I'm saying, or strange as in the volume is off? That's the tricky thing here. Okay, so I guess that means that it's that bad, huh? Let's see here. The music is louder than my voice. Okay, so what if I just try quieting the music? What does that do? Does that make it better? You're my sound expert now. Because you're the one who's here and can hear what the hell I'm doing. I have no idea what's going on with my mic. I don't know why it's misbehaving today. And I'm pretty sure it's due to the mic. Okay, so the mic is just quiet then. Okay. The other thing that I can try doing is I can try boosting some mic volume. What does that do? Is that too much? Does that help? I don't know. Oh, is that better? Okay. Much better? Okay. Is it like too loud, or is that good? Stupid microphone. Alright, okay, it's like too loud. Oh, is it good? Is it good? Okay, alright, I'm gonna leave it as is then. We're just gonna not touch anything else. We're gonna not touch anything else. And see if that works. I don't know what's going on with the mic. I think what is happening is this headset is like a decade old. And it's just finally probably wearing out from all the abuse, but one of these days I'll get myself a real mic and we'll be able to do stuff, you know, like actual good recording and stuff. But today is not that day. So, okay, now that we got that hammered out, I guess we can do like an actual stream now, can't we? And yeah, so, you know, we're doing our writing here, our writing streams, working on our campaign that we've been working on within our region here. Last time we spent some time, oh wait, hold on, it'll probably help if you guys could actually see what I'm talking about. Haha, there we go. Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, so we're gonna work on, so no, we did finish up our encounter tables, at long last. Oops, we need to go to our atlas here. We have massive amounts of potentially random potential encounters. But we did finally finish those. So we're kind of moving on to some other parts of this campaign at this point in time. And last couple streams, we worked on kind of just you know, putting down some basic ideas about what we might want to do for different story-based missions and what the campaign itself is going to be about. And so we did a little bit of that, and then last time we started working on, we kind of fleshed out and invented our sort of theoretical big bad here. Although, as we kind of discussed, it's this character, this main villain, isn't really necessarily going to be a villain, depending on how players decide to approach things. Should be grading quizzes, but also world building. I mean, you know, you gotta keep the priorities straight. And I think that the world that you're building would probably be very appreciative of you giving them a certain level of precedence. So, you know, I think I don't see the problem personally. And also, you know, students and quizzes, ugh. Gosh, who cares, right? Just whatever. Just give them all a B and call it good. That works, right? You're allowed to do that? I don't know how teaching works. I've never taught. I'm trying to make sure my microphone stays in like a good position because it's been so quiet. There we go. Okay. But yeah, so that's what we've been working on lately. We gave ourselves a big bad, which is going to be a dragon. And I dig that. I'm happy about that. But what I wanted to work on today a little bit is thinking a bit about like all of our factions, because we've kind of established our region. We've sort of talked about what types of enemies are going to be around here, which has kind of given us an idea about what our factions will be in this. And so I wanted to take some time just sort of thinking about what the exact nature of these factions are going to be, sort of along the lines of what are their goals, what are they doing in this area, because I don't like an enemy that exists strictly to be an enemy. I feel like that is not satisfying to players, especially if you have players who are big into the role-playing sides of things. So I like to make sure that when I'm creating any sort of villain or villainous faction, I think about what their purpose is, why are they there, so that way when they interact with players, it's less about giving them scripted lines and more about knowing, you know, it's easier to have intelligent enemies because then they are aware of what they want in regards to what the players are doing. So, you know, if what they want goes against what the players are doing, then it's real easy to just sort of ad-lib and role-play confrontational things. Whereas if they're kind of working on the same stuff and in agreement about a lot of things, they can, you know, instead of being an enemy necessarily, they can be an ally. Yeah, exactly. They can make an actual intelligent decision. You know, players can do that, or you know, the factions can do that, rather than it just being constant. Like, okay, here's the bad guys, kill them. Right? You're exactly right. you know, and like I say, the big thing about that is it just, especially if you have a role play heavy group, that makes it much more satisfying for them. If your group is playing a game where they really just want to get to the next dungeon crawl, get the treasure, you know, split the loot, spend some money, get to the next dungeon. If that's really what they're about, then, I mean, all that extra work is kind of for nothing. But the flip side of it is, then you can just say, like, okay, who cares what their personality should be? Here's the dungeon, go kill everything. You know, it's easier to make your enemies, or it's easier to make a faction or a big bad or an enemy or anything. It's easier to make them dumber than what you originally planned than it is to try and make them smarter than you originally planned, right? At least on the fly. Your wife has the hack and slash mind. Hey, some people are wired that way, and far be it from me to say that that's the wrong way to play D&D. That's the beauty of D&D. And in fact, when I'm a player, as much thought as I put into my campaigns, when I'm a player, I don't actually do much role playing because I spend so much time role playing as a DM that when I get to be a player, I tend to make a fighter and just say, like, yeah, he wants to slice everything in half. And if the other party tells him not to slice that one thing in half, he'll have restraint. But for the most part, he just wants to slice everything in half. So that's, you know, nothing wrong with that. More role-playing players. Yeah, like that's the kind of funny thing about it is some people really are just really into the role-playing, and like there's a certain there can be a certain frustration when someone wants to really just like kill everything and everyone else is like, well, no, hold on, let's see if we can talk our way through it. And like the person who has the barbarian is like, I don't talk, I smash. But the flip side of it is then you turn that into the role play and it's perfectly fun. And that's kind of what I end up doing with my characters always when I'm a player is I just turn the fact that I want to slash everything that moves into the role playing thing where it's like, oh, can I kill him yet? No, all right. You know, it's like I'm sitting there and then they just kind of like that's the character, and it just kind of, you know, it makes it really easy to role play that character. I don't know. The upshot of it is the point of everything that I'm saying at this exact moment is play however you want, but as a DM, plan for the most complex, and then it'll be easier to simplify on the fly when you need to. So that's kind of what my principle as a DM and as a world builder is. But yeah, so we have essentially 4 factions. Well, I guess 5 factions. I guess you could say it's 5 factions. Because we're going to have, up here, we're going to have our drow, and they're going to be a faction. In the mountains, like inside the mountains, we're going to have our Durgar. That's going to be a faction. On the top of the mountains, we have giants. So there's a faction. And then we have our good guys, right? Our humanoids, the people that our players are at least starting. Oh, excuse me. Wow, that was a burp. I apologize. That was rude. I wasn't quick enough on the cover up. So we have our humans, not just humans, but it's easier to just say humans. That faction there, and then we have our dragon and his Leonin worshippers. And so those are kind of so that's kind of how it turns into 5 factions. The Leonins are kind of off to the side. I don't know that they'll even really feature heavily in this. It depends on what the players do. But I guess I want to plan them out and have them there because again, you plan for complexity. And you and then simplify on the fly. Oh, what do you got here? Build something like squishy spellcaster. Sure, he's going to be a barbarian. Later arrived session 0 with an artificer. She wanted to start practicing. Nice. Oh, the irony of trying to plan for one another. If everyone has a token character that they play, and then everyone tries to plan to work around that, then everyone's doing something different than what they would normally do. That's funny. That's really funny. So let's see here. So what I really got to think about right now is which one of these do I want to flesh out first, or which one do I want to think about first? And I think we're at this stage now, and I talk about this a lot, and I think it's a perfectly good thing to reiterate again and again and again because I think it's easy. I know it's easy because this is something that I do all the time. What I do is I tend to get a little bogged down in trying to make everything perfect on the first try. And that's not really the best way to do it. You know, what's really the way to do it is start with a mess and then refine it, edit it as you go, you know, that's the best way to do it. Okay, let's see here. Whoopsie. Let's see here. Failire, do I have time to look at homebrew? Failire, I do have a Discord channel. What you should do is if you're of a mind, join the Discord. You can find it linked on my channel. So that way you can share it there. So that way I can, like, if you want me to take a look at it, I'd be happy to. But that way I can do it when I got a bit more time and I'm not trying to work and accomplish stuff for the stream. But I'd be happy to do that. You have to get yourself verified on there, and I'll try and verify you this afternoon at some point in time. I've done that just to make sure bots, like ad bots and shit, don't take over it. But yeah, I'd be happy to. But then let's see here, and then oh, hey Yuta, how's it going? Yeah, definitely. Nothing is truly perfect. I mean, that's the name of the game as a DM, is never assume anything is perfect. Like, it's not even about that, really. It's just players will do stuff. No matter how much you plan, players are going to do things. And they're going to come up with the most ridiculous thing that you never even thought of as a thing that they could do. And they're going to do it. And you're going to have to, you know, make edits on the fly. So it's, yeah, it's always an editing process. But the reason I was kind of leading in with that is I don't know that I want to try and come up with, like, the final form of what any of these factions we're going to do are, but instead I kind of want to just, like, work on, let's see, I want to work on, sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at once. I want to just kind of come up with the baseline stuff for everything. You know, just some of the main points, the big points. Let's see here. Played one game of D&D and you're already addicted. That's how it gets you. That's how it gets you, Yuta. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And additionally, part of the reason that that's all it takes is usually someone who's gone through the trouble to even play one in the first place is already pretty hooked on the concept of it, so it doesn't take much. Why do you want to conquer the world? Because that's exactly exactly, Taukert, what I always try to avoid, and why I like to flesh out and come up with ideas and understandings of what the character traits are for the enemies and everything. Party go calling you a rogue until you cast Eldritch Blast. Yep, that'll prove them wrong if they're thinking that you're a rogue there, Yuta. That's sounds about right. Sounds about right. All right. So I don't know what faction. What faction should we work on? Awesome, Failire. Yeah, I will try and get you verified at some point in time. It might not be till tonight. I got a pretty busy day ahead of me. But when I can, I will do that for you. And you can post. I've got like a channel exactly for homebrew stuff, so that way when I actually have time, I can actually like look into the homebrew stuff that you guys share, because you guys share awesome stuff, and I feel bad because I don't always have time to go over it in stream, and then it's just kind of gone because the chat's gone, So I think that'll be a much better way to kind of work on stuff. But let's see here. I don't know, which one should we work on first? I almost kind of want to work on the Leonins first, just because we spent last time working on our dragon, who is what we're kind of working on is the Leonins in this world, in this reality, kind of worship the dragon. And so I kind of want to work on that, just kind of ride that momentum a little bit, at least start with that, and then we can move on to other things. I don't know. Why not? Let's do it, right? I'm going to do it. Let's see. Let's just call it the Golden Wind Leonins. I don't know. Like they don't really have a faction name. They're not like a cult or anything. So we'll just call them the Golden Wind Leonins or something. I don't know, because that's where they live, and it's just sort of like a series of like tribal communities is kind of what I'm thinking for them. Let's see here. We'll do the quick intro. We usually do that last. So we can just kind of start working our way down here. So, see, now's the part where we get to yellow hairy cats. I mean, describing cats as hairy is kind of redundant, isn't it? But I hear what you're saying. Let's see here. For the history. So what's kind of important about the history for these guys, So we have pre-unhinging and post-unhinging. Remember, within my world, my homebrew world, the unhinging is the cataclysmic event in which like all of the different realms of existence got kind of all jumbled up, and it caused all kinds of weird, crazy things going on. And so that's what our unhinging is. And so I always try to break up the history. I try to break up the history into being like before that and after that, because there's in most societies, when the world ends, there's a pretty clear pre and post word. Oh, you like that? You like that, Towkurt? Unhinging? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I got the idea. It was a long time ago. I think it was mostly that I was trying to come up with something that wouldn't be copyrighted if I ever tried to publish anything at the time. And I couldn't think of anyone that used the apocalypse, used the term unhinging for apocalypse, and I thought that seemed about right too, because it's like, it's not necessarily that the world ended, it's more so that just everything became a little unhinged and got a little crazy. So, but at any rate, so for any faction, I try to think about it as like being a pre and post event, for their histories. That's how things are usually when there's like a big event. People think about before times and after times. So Magic the Gathering, of course they would. That hardly counts though. Magic the Gathering changes things all the time, or so I guess, based on the fact that people are always trying to build new decks and stuff. I don't know. I don't play Magic, but but let's see here. So well, some of them did and some of them didn't, Towkurt, and that's kind of the fun part about creating them. Is it like that's and the fun part of it being a homebrew world is we can kind of just like decide. And so when the faction is in this situation, I'm using faction kind of loosely because we're just talking about a race of people, right? And so for this faction, the Leonins, I have kind of in my mind that they did exist prior to the unhinging, and they were just simply, as they are now. Like, they are, as far as things go, largely untouched or largely unaffected by the unhinging. Or at the very least, their existence was not greatly altered. Maybe their approaches to certain parts of their lives changed, but my idea of them is they've always just kind of been tribal people that exist within the Golden Wind Plains. They've kind of always been there, and then when the unhinging happened, they just kind of kept going on with life, So that's kind of what I have in mind. So trying to think about what they would have been like beforehand. And so one thing that I like to do, I never hold myself particularly strongly to the lore as written, but I like to use it a lot as a sort of starting point, a springboard, because we are working on homebrew. So I always let myself feel perfectly free to take whatever I want, change as necessary, and discard what I don't need. I always feel very free to do that because it's my world. I can do what I want. Back off. But it's easiest a lot of times when I'm trying to, because I do try to make this so that players can use whatever exists within the, whatever there is within the existing sort of pantheon and whatnot for D&D. I always try to make sure my world is cohesive enough that all we have to do is maybe some small tweaks to character history or something like that to make it fit and make their character fit in this world. So I always like using the rules as written as a springboard and go from there. That's my personal style. Anyone else doing their own homebrew can take whatever level of adherence to the rules as written, whatever, however they like. That's the beauty of world building and being a DM and doing homebrew. You can do whatever you want. Vampire faction. They can certainly exist. I don't think we're going to use it in this one. That's a different campaign, but that's, vampires are pretty rad in general. I honestly, I never really get tired of the concept of vampires versus werewolves. Like, I think that's just such a fun, classic, Hatfields and McCoys type of situation. So, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, exactly, Towkurt. If you want to add races that don't even exist in D&D, but they serve the story that you're trying to tell, then just do it. Do it. Why not? Like, that's the beauty of homebrew. And, like, the thing is, too, is like someone who is very much into existing pantheons and wants to play a game with like tight rules and stuff wouldn't like this about 5e. But as far as homebrew, that's kind of the beauty of 5e is that they go out of their way to tell you, change things, use the rules, or don't. Do what you want. Like that's kind of one of the cool things about it. They're like, here's a set of rules. Use them as you will. You know, they encourage that kind of stuff, which is why I never feel too ashamed of playing really fast and loose with the stuff, because while they write it, they're always writing it with the intention of us doing what we want with it, you know, and so that's what I'm doing right here. So let's see here. What do we got here? Show from the same. I'm not following what you're saying, STSL. I'm not following you there. Maybe I need to stand up so it doesn't go over my head. But let's see here. So what do we have here for Leonins? Leonin guard the shining lands of Oreskos, the Golden Plain. I mean, come on, I didn't intend that. I had come up with the Golden Wind Plains actually as an existing place before the Leonins were dropped. But I mean, come on, how could that be more perfect? Where even gods rarely trespass. Prides in these nomadic lion-like humanoids rarely interact with other peoples, having all they need in their shimmering homeland, knowing the treachery of strangers. That really fits with kind of what we're doing here. Oh, I see. STSL. You're talking about Barovia with Strahd and everything. Got it. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's kind of the beauty of Curse of Strahd, is that they like intentionally made it so that it doesn't actually exist in a world, and you can just be like, you can just take that and put that into any existing world, and it like makes sense, because like the entire thing is it's separate from the world, and you just like enter a fog and then suddenly you're in the villages with that. Like that's kind of one of the beauties of Curse of Strahd. It's real easy to just shove into your world when you need something. I like to use those types of things. So here's, pro tip for anyone who's a DM that likes to do homebrew stuff. If you run into a situation where, this happens to me a lot, where it's like, oh, we have a campaign going, but I'm really busy in my life right now, and I don't have time to be writing a whole lot of stuff. Take a pre-made module, just take that, change a couple details as needed, and then use that. Like, that's one of the most wonderful things to do. Like, even if players recognize it, if you change a few details, suddenly it's like, oh, it's fresh and new, and players are excited about it. But you don't have to do a lot of work, because everything's almost already done for you, other than changing a few things. So if you're a DM short of time, do that. Real good way to make it look like you're doing a whole lot more work than you actually are. Let's see here. Leonins, noble and fierce. Leonin tend to be tall compared to humans. Okay, that's... we don't care so much about that. We're talking about history here. Manes ranging in shades from gold to black, while their hands prove as nimble as those of other humanoids. Tractable feline claws, along with the ability to produce bone-shaking roars. Yeah. This can reassure their allies, so that's just... Okay. Quick to quarrel. Other peoples often perceive Leonin as quick to take offense, intolerant of criticism or belligerent. Truth is that many Leonin simply enjoy fighting, whether verbal or physical. They take pleasure in argument, wrestling, sparring, and even battle. They would love the internet. They would absolutely love the internet. They take joy in picking fights. They enjoy getting in arguments. It's like, yeah, no, they would fit right in on the internet. Tell you what, warrior might react with sudden violence to an insult, but when the fight is over, and their superiority is proven, insult is forgotten, along with the vanquished foe. Pride and self-reliance. Feel Leonin devote themselves to the service of the gods. Centuries ago, the Leonin worshipped the same gods that humans do, but after many of their pride suffered depravities at the hands of the tyrant, most Leonins reject the gods. It's not that they deny the existence of deities. They merely see the gods as mercurial and ultimately unworthy of adoration. It's fair. Leonin and the gods suggest the range of attitudes that Leonin might adopt toward the gods. Leonin rely on themselves and their prides. Names, I don't care about that stuff as much. Okay, all right. So here's where I'm immediately kind of going in my brain space with this. So if this is what our Leonins are about as rules as written, here's my thought. So we've kind of established that in the here and now, in the present within this world, we've kind of talked about how they were the ones who raised the dragon and sort of worshiped the dragons, which kind of goes against what the rules as written are saying. And the rules as written are kind of like, oh no, they shun the gods. So here's my thought. The Leonin existed before the unhinging, as like in the way that the rules as written have it. Okay, so they existed there. They didn't really give two shits about the gods. They were just kind of tribal nomads living in the Golden Plains, just kind of going about their lives. You know, they had their prides and they stuck close to their prides, and that was kind of it. And everyone knew the Golden Plains. You had to be careful. You might run into them and they might pick a fight with you. And that's just kind of how things went. But then the unhinging happened, and their lives, the balance within the Golden Plains and their lives were kind of thrown out of whack. And so my thought is that maybe a couple tribes then turned to worship of gods, you know, maybe Bahamut or something like that, right? They turned to the gods in search of answers and comfort in the times immediately after the unhinging, when the world was incredibly chaotic, right? And those ones that did that are the ones that found the dragon egg, you know, eventually that found the dragon egg that our dragon hatched from. And then that dragon has now sort of been, for the past couple hundred years, helping to reestablish and maintain peace and balance within the Golden Plains, which has led pretty much all of the tribes into a state of worshiping the dragon. That's kind of what my thought is of their history, right? And so that's kind of how we can stay kind of cohesive with our rules as written, and then have that go into our sort of more homebrewy world that we're working on. That's where my thought first goes. So I got to think about a way to sort of succinctly and clearly put that. Let's see here. Have a group meet gypsies and say, yeah, absolutely. You could definitely, you know, if you're wanting to use in a homebrew, you know, aspects of that Strahd thing, you could just have them meet the gypsies. I mean, that's kind of like how it started, right? That's kind of how the whole thing started. Let's see, the dragons, I'm assuming you're talking about chaotic good or neutral good. The dragons themselves are kind of, like, I like to use the dragons, at least their personalities, to kind of match their color in rules as written, just because that makes it fun, and the colors tend to kind of match the environments and stuff, and I think that's good, useful flavor. We're going with I think it was the brass dragon that we landed on. And that tends to be kind of a chaotic good, where they're pretty flighty. And so the dragon that we did is like, he takes his job of protecting and caring for the Golden Plains seriously, but he is flighty and very much likes conversations and stuff like that. So I guess that would lean towards a chaotic good. But it's like chaotic good in conversation, but more neutral good in action, if that makes any sense at all. But that's kind of the direction I've been taking with it, trying to establish that, because what I'm trying to establish is a dragon that more than anything else wants to protect our Golden Plains here, and so the dragon's kind of upset about this effort to build a road that goes through the Golden Plains, because, you know, from his knowledge of, you know, what he's learned about times before the unhinging, that tends to lead to things like cities popping up, which tends to lead to a lot of chaos and territorial battles and all that kind of stuff like that. So it's like the dragon does not want this as it stands, and so the players kind of have to figure out, you know, do they fight the dragon? Do they try to cut a deal with the dragon? And that's why I wanted a dragon that wasn't inherently evil. I wanted one that was going to be a bit more, you know, like, if you stop and don't test me, I'll let you go about your business. But you're not making this pathway that goes through my plains, right? And that's kind of what it is. Can the dragon have a nemesis? Maybe a dangerous Hydra. So the dragon, the way we're going to do it, there's not going to be any Hydras in this one. I love Hydras, but I don't think I think the issue that I'm running into is, you know, with a lot of big bads, is with 4 potential enemy factions, this map is getting pretty full. and I don't want to overload it and use every cool thing within just this one thing, because we still have, when it just comes to me and my projects that I work on for fun, we'll load up the world. We still have an entire world to fill. We are working on just this hex right here, and we still have an entire world. So I don't like using up all the cool things in one region. So hydras are awesome, and I love hydras, but I'm saving a hydra for a different campaign. In this one, we're going to stick with the giants, Drow, Leonin, and Duragar. I have a hydra in a different region. We can have hydras really in any region that we want. We could certainly put a hydra in a region, but that's a different project for a different day at that point in time. But no, I do love hydras. Whenever I look at a hydra, I always kind of have that moment where I'm like, ooh, that would be cool. But I think we're gonna stay away from them this time. But the dragon, if the dragon has a nemesis within this region, it's most likely going to be with the giants that live in the mountains over here. But right now, the dragon is kind of at just sort of a neutral state with those giants, or at least when the campaign opens. Players can certainly influence whatever they want to do and cause things to change however they please. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to stick with. Just because, again, the other issue is we don't want a single campaign region to be too full, right? If we put every big bad in there, we won't really have a cohesive story, And when we're getting towards 4 factions, that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. So, oh, hi, Kitty. Kitty, my cat is going to come and get in the way. You might see her tail. Oh, you can kind of see her little ear right here. I know, Kitty. She likes to try and lay on the keyboard and then get mad at me when I tell her no. That's one of her favorite hobbies right now. Isn't it, you little shit? I know. Yeah, we can try and I'll try and hold on. I gotta boop, there she is. Say hi. That's my little one-eyed cretin. There she is. Yeah, she really is a sweetheart. She only has one eye. But like every cat, she goes out of her way to try and find a couple different ways to be an asshole from time to time. I know. That's what you like to do. All right, now you're gonna bump my hand while I'm trying to use the mouse. I should be a demon cat. That sounds like I would leave that up to my players if they wanted to create a class that had a familiar. Demon cat that attacks the party. I could see something like that happening, like in the mountains or something. Just flavor like a panther or whatever as like a demon cat. And it's my cat. Yeah, my cat been in there. Yeah, but my cat wouldn't be good at fighting though. She couldn't see. She wouldn't know when to do a melee or a ranged attack. She's got no depth perception with the one eye, so she'd be a terrible combatant. She's much better as a role-playing entity than a combative one. I know. Hi, Kitty. All right, she's gonna snuggle with me now. That's a good spot for you. I know, Kitty. This cat. This goofy cat. What the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, not overloading a region. It's a great spot, Spesh. Being on the lap is probably the best spot when working on a desktop. Ironically, though, it's the worst spot when working on a laptop. So that's kind of one of the interesting things about it. But it's not actually that interesting, so I'm gonna drop it. But yeah, so thinking about our factions here. So let's get back to our lean-ins here. So we talked about what more is needed before we can introduce players to this world. There's a lot that we need for this to be ready. There's a whole lot that we need to be ready here. What we have established here. This is a long-term project. We have a map and we have our random encounters. So we could put players in here and let them walk around. But as it stands right now, we have a rough sketch of what our campaign is going to be, and 0 dungeons planned. So we need a lot. In terms of what I kind of want to do, it is going to be there's a whole lot that will change over the process of writing this. So it's hard for me to give like a definitive checklist of what we need. But what I'm going to do must be a huge dwarven dungeon. I don't know that we want to stop at 1 there. What I like to try and do with this is I like there to be roughly 10 planned, or at least 10 potential like main missions within a region is what I like to do. Kind of roughly thinking. So this campaign is meant to be this campaign is kind of meant to take players from level 1 to 10, right? I want them to once they reach level 10, that should be about when they're completing this bit of story. So then if they wanted to carry those characters on beyond this campaign, we would have them move on into a different region and continue on with the characters that way. And so I always like to do the dungeons. I like to have there be sort of like 10 main big dungeons that they go through, or 10 main big story things that they go through. So that way there's like one for each set of levels. And obviously that changes a little bit, right? And there's going to be more than that. That's not the hard and fast thing, but that's kind of the starting point. In reality, there will probably be almost close to 20 dungeons, with there being more low-level ones and fewer higher-level ones. So that way, as players, if players decide to take different tracks and approach different methods of completing this campaign, there are still options. They're not going to be railroaded by their level, if that makes sense. So I would like to try and have maybe 20 or so encounters or 20 or so dungeons. Dungeons, I use dungeon pretty loosely. A dungeon can include just like a city that may end up having hostiles, like hostile people. Could have hostiles in there, but that's a different word. It could have hostile people in it. That counts as a dungeon. But the idea is then, since we've got sort of 4 enemy factions, maybe about 5 different potential dungeons for each faction. Maybe with the Leonin ones taking up more of the low-end dungeons, the low-level dungeons, because they're going to be starting off in the plains, they're going to have to travel there. With the Durgar and the giant areas, having more of like the mid-range ones, and then maybe the Drow having some really high-level dungeons, just for the sake of like as they travel through, that will like progress them. The other thing about it too, though, is one of the dungeons is going to be the Dragon's Lair somewhere in these Golden Wind Plains. I have to figure out exactly how to structure a lair within just like an open plain area, because that is in theory the big bad, unless they choose to kind of go along with it. In which case, I'll probably make one or both of these mountainous ones a big bad option for them to do it that way. I don't know. It's all a rough draft, and we're gonna refine it and figure it out as we go. That's just how it goes. Is there a cult in this world? Within the world, hell yeah. There's all kinds of cults within the world. Within this region, we haven't really established a cult, unless we want to count the Durgar and the Drow as cults, which I think is, reasonable. I think that's reasonable. See ya, kitty. She saw a bird outside, so she has to go hunt it now. So yeah, I don't know that we've established an official cult in this region, but within the whole map, oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah, there's cults, there's everything. That's why I work off of an entire world. So that way there's space for whatever the hell we decide we want to put in there, right? I can put anything that I have the idea I want to make, there's a place in here for it. And odds are I've kind of thought about what region this, that, or the other thing would exist in this world. So there's definitely space for that. Let's see. How do I even get on these tangents? How do I let you guys get me on these tangents? I haven't written a single goddamn thing today. This is supposed to be a writing stream. We're an hour in. I haven't written a thing. No, that's actually why I really like streaming. I think it's really fun to share and discuss these ideas. It kind of helps me think about the ideas a bit more completely too when I have to sort of do the Bob Ross thing of explaining it as I'm creating it. It makes me be a bit more mindful about it, and so I actually really like it. Plus, you guys have some cool ideas, so it's really fun to pick your guys' brains and kind of incorporate some of the stuff that you guys come up with into my campaign here. But at any rate, let's talk about some Leonins here. So their pre-unhinging history. I think what I want to do here is I kind of want the Leonins, their pre-unhinging history, to kind of be a mystery in a lot of ways, because if they're going to be primarily tribal and even nomadic to a degree, it's not like there's going to be a library of Leonin history, right? They're not really a people that are creating massive archives of their history. So it's like their history kind of is one of a lot of folklore that eventually bleeds into a bit more clearly understood history based on once they started interacting with more and more other beings in the world, right? So I think what I want to open up with is something along the lines of the true origin of the Leonin people is let's say largely unknown. According to Leonin lore, they were created. I'm just kind of riffing here. Like it's a really important thing. Again, I'll say it. It's a really, if you want to be a DM who does like your own writing of homebrew stuff, you got to get in the habit of just riffing and putting random crap down and then editing it. That's really the best way to get stuff going, because what'll happen is if you're too caught up on trying to keep things perfect, and I've run into this issue many times while trying to write things, if you get too caught up in trying to make it perfect the first time, you'll freeze up. You'll kind of get this analysis paralysis going on, and you'll freeze up. And that's kind of where, for me anyway, where a lot of writer's block comes from, is because I have an idea, but I want to make it perfect right from the get-go. Don't do that. Inspiration doesn't beget action. Action begets inspiration. Sit there, start writing some stuff, and then eventually, as you're writing things, you'll realize, oh, no, wait, I don't like that. Oh, I really like that part. Let's lean into that more. Oh, looking back at what I wrote, I didn't really care for that. Or, oh, I should change that name a little bit. And that's kind of what will end up creating a good final product for you. So as I'm sitting here just riffing things out, I will likely change a lot of this. But I'm getting it down. I'm getting it started. And that's like one of the most important bits of advice I can give to anyone who wants to be a DM that does homebrew stuff, is just start writing it. And even if you throw the whole thing away, at least you started and you learned what you didn't want to do after all. So anyway, according to Leonin lore, they were created by let's see, they were created by the gods, and we'll just leave it simple like that. Created by the gods as gladiators for their amusement. Let's see here, in those days of origin, the Leonin were largely thoughtless, and let's say we're largely thoughtless, thoughtless, caring little for anything other than the fight. And we'll just call it that. Let's see here. Then one day, as a bet, a Leonin champion claimed to the gods that he could beat there it is, any of them in singular combat. The gods were amused and accepted the challenge. Let's see, the gods were amused and accepted the challenge, offering the Leonin champion. And I'm putting in Leonin champion, but already in my head I'm thinking this character needs a name. Just so that way, if my if my players decide they want to do research on the Leonins, I know how to I can give them some background information that they can research, right? And it's like they can use that to try and win favor if they mention like the champion or something like that. Can do something like that just to like earn appreciation. Like based on the lore we're creating, I think it's unlikely that would be something that the Leonins would suddenly be like, oh gosh, you're one of us, but they would kind of be like, oh, okay, you've taken some time to learn about us and our history. That's respectable. Kind of like if you're a tourist and you've at least put in the effort to try and learn the local language. Usually, like, people will appreciate that, even though they're like, I mean, you're clearly not going to write a bestseller, you know, but you've taken the time to try and learn. We appreciate that, right? So, like, that can be, so I'm immediately thinking that this Leonin needs a name, and actually what I'm going to do I'll do this type of stuff a lot, is I'm going to highlight this, and then in parentheses I'm going to say needs a name and a story. We'll just do something like that, just to like give myself a note. And actually, I want to highlight that bit of it too, so I remember that that's all part of the same note. So it's like, you know, do things like that. Give yourself little notes within your own writing, so that way you can remember, oh yeah, I need to go back and do that. This is going to be a very low priority, long-term thing. This is going to be something that I'll do on a day when I'm feeling burnt out from the more major things. Like if I just finished a big dungeon and I'm like, okay, I just did some story-heavy stuff. I need something simple that doesn't require a whole lot of work, that I don't need to worry too much about how cohesive it is with everything else. So I can just go ahead and like, boom, put a name. That is a name. That is a name. Kairos Wildtooth. I like Wildtooth. I might keep that. I don't know. I'm not going to think about it today, though. I'm going to give myself permission to not think about that. I'm going to leave the note there. Champion needs a name, needs a story, and we'll leave it there, because right now I want to stay focused on what I'm working on. That's another thing that is important about the notes, too, is you put down the notes so that way you're not, like, doing the one thing where it's like what's the cold open from Malcolm in the Middle, when Hal, what was it? It started off, he had to change a light bulb, right? So he pulled out the light bulb, went to the closet to get a new one, found that the shelf was like unstable, right? And so then he was trying to fix the shelf, but then he found that like the screwdriver was broken or something like that. So then he had to go to the store, but then the car wouldn't start, and so it was like just like one thing after the other, and so he never actually fixed the light bulb. You know, it's like that's the type of thing I try to avoid. You know, it's real easy if I follow every little thought immediately, then nothing ever gets done, because you just end up following, you know, chasing these ideas all over the place. And so that's why the notes are really handy. You put the note there. I need to do that. I want to do that, but not right now. And the reason that I know that works is because I have done the chase every single little winding path, and I've done that in the past, and I make very little progress whenever I take that approach to it. So it's good to, you know, these are the types of things that I've learned, and so learn from my past struggles and save yourselves the time and just learn it fast. That's you know, that's another piece of advice for all you newer to writing homebrew stuff people. But let's see here. So the gods were amused and accepted the challenge, offering the Leonin freedom from the gladiator rings if he could best them. Against all odds, the Leonin won, and the gods kept their promise. Promise. There it is. Off granting the Leonin freedom. Let's see here. From there, the Leonin came, we'll just say, and we'll leave it kind of like hazy, because that's kind of the idea of like folklore, right? From there, the Leonin came to the Golden Wind, Plains, and started a society for him and his people. Leave it a little hazy. Was it just him that was granted the freedom, or was it all of them? You know, or is this kind of going on like, you know, that biblical front? All Leonins are born of this Leonin, and that's just how it happened because of magic. You know, it's like, just leave it hazy. You know, we're talking about a legend, a folklore. So we'll leave it hazy. And if I decide it serves to add more detail, we can do that. But for now, just leave it hazy. From there, Leonin came to Golden Plains and started a society for him and his people. For centuries, the Leonins lived in comfort in the plains. And I'm just going to keep it simple here. Leonins lived in comfort in the plains, breaking off into tribes based largely on different beliefs on the best principles of fighting. Yeah, and so it's like this is the origin of all the different martial arts in the world. I don't know, just something like that. Like, I could see that being, given their history, and like that's what they did. They won their freedom from the gods. They won the freedom to not care about the gods, and that's why they didn't care, right? That's why they weren't worshiping them. Is sort of my thought. And it's like, it talks about how they just really they enjoy fighting. And so it's like different philosophies of fighting would probably break off and just go do their own thing, like the jiu-jitsu lion people are over there while the kickboxing lion people are over there. Meanwhile, you have the Krav Maga lions living over there, and it's like they've all just got their own thing going on. And I actually think that's kind of a pretty cool concept for it, and it would be a fun explanation for it. And it's like, based on the different principles of fighting, though many outsiders who discovered the Leonins believed the tribes to be at constant war, those who took the time to understand would see that the battles between tribes, let's see here, how do I want to say this? Those who took the time to understand would see that the battles between tribes were those were strictly for fun and pride. Let's hear. Tribes would meet and hold competitions between their best champions. Hold up. Champions, with the winning tribe being granted gifts from the losing tribe. And just like say it like that. Like, it was never about never about fighting to the death for them. It was always just about, hey, look, it's that tribe. I bet we can beat them up. And they go, and that's just what they do, and that's their lives. Let's see here. So life went for the Leonins. As the world grew and changed around them, they stayed the same, enjoying. Oh boy, I butchered that word. Enjoying. Hey, Lunarkin, how's it going? They stayed the same, enjoying. How do I want to say this? Their lifestyle in the relative seclusion of the Golden Wind Plains. And we'll say other races being too nervous. No, I had it right the first time. Too nervous of the combative Leonins to try encroaching upon the territory. Boom, there we go. Still like that. It's like, yeah, that's the only reason. It was just sort of like that deterrence. It was sort of that deterrence where it's like they didn't have to win, freedom from everyone else bothering them. They just sort of went about their thing, and everyone's like, "Whoa, these guys are nuts. I don't really want to mess with them." They go and they fight each other for fun. I don't want that. Let's see here. So life went for the Leonins. We're going to chase around them. Stay the same, enjoying the lifestyle and relative seclusion of the Golden Wind Plains. Of course, even for the self-contained Leonin and tribes, the unhinging brought about big changes to life. Cliffhanger, bum bum bum. Always leave them with a cliffhanger. Always leave them with a cliffhanger. That's how you want to do it. 10 out of 10 now that you need to take a nap. I am 100% understanding of that. Children are exhausting. There's a reason that I don't have any, aside from the fact that I'm just alone and who would I have children with. But also because of the fact that children are exhausting and I can only take so much of them. So a napping child is arguably one of my favorite types of children. I like a napping child. I like them when they're asleep and not bothering me and not making all kinds of noise and not making themselves and everything around them sticky and gross. I like a napping child. I'm all about that. All right, so now let's think about what do hold on, I'm trying to remember how to get my mic positioning here because I know my mic has been weird. So I don't want to like accidentally leave it too far away and have it be too quiet for you guys. Okay, I think I got it. Let's see here. So post-unhinging history. So the unhinging happens, and that's like a pretty immediate, definite event. So I usually always talk about it in the early days and then as things progressed, because things just always sort of changed over time with the unhinging. Because the unhinging was like a very extreme event that caused all kinds of chaotic stuff to happen in the world, let loose a whole bunch of weird monstrosities and all of the like into the mortal plane. But then ever since it happened, all of the craziness has been slowly but steadily subsiding over the past couple thousand years, is what it is. So it's always like immediately what happened, and then how have they been recovering as the world is recovering. Let's see, there's barely one learning about her voice and fingers. Oh yeah, yep, okay. Children, once they start to get to that exploratory age, in some ways that's kind of fun, right? Because that's when they start getting interactive. But that's also when they start becoming very difficult to manage, because like once they reach that age where they're curious, and then when they're curious and mobile, then it's game over. You will not be able to sit still. Let's see here. So, the unhinging. Let's see here. World-changing event like the name. Oh yeah. So the unhinging is like the unhinging is kind of the big thing in my homebrew world. It's what made the world what it is in the sort of present time that I always put my players in. The unhinging is that's the big world. That's the big calamity. The way I always describe it is, imagine that the mortal plane and all of the elemental planes and the ethereal planes and philosophical planes, all that stuff, imagine all of those things are like a jar with different layers of sand and water and oil and all that kind of stuff, right? You have all these layers that you just set it on a desk, and you have all these layers of different sediment and stuff, and they all just stay put. The unhinging is like someone took that jar and shook it all up, so that all of the different layers got all kinds of mixed up, and everything was just all kinds of crazy and bizarre and insane and not functional. And then basically all of time after the unhinging has been the slow percolation process of different things, different layers kind of settling back out. So it's like the idea is that given enough time into the future, everything would return to as it was. But right now, everyone is still in the process of everything being kind of wacky, thrown out of whack, and slowly settling back out into their more distinct layers is sort of the idea of the unhinging. So thinking about the Leonins for post-unhinging, what I think I want to say here is at first the Leonin were unaware of the unhinging. Let's see here. As a collective of small tribes, they were fortunate enough to be far away from any tears in reality that formed within the plains. But eventually, tribes began encountering these tears, and the monstrous creatures brought forth from them. Boom. So they'll be in the recovering stages of the campaign. Yes, yes. Every campaign that I write, I put in this world. This is my world. I absolutely love the setting. And the reason that I always said it that way, too, is because the unhinging explains why weird-ass fucking things like beholders can exist in the world the same time as something mundane like a bunny rabbit can exist in the world. You know, even because even for a world filled with magic and strangeness as, you know, the high fantasy D&D, I like there to be a sense of internal logic about, like, why does it make sense that this weird creature that doesn't actually make sense exists? Like, why does it make sense that a creature that is all eyeball can somehow survive? You know, I don't necessarily just like hand-waving it as magic, because even though I'm willing to accept magic as the reason, it's like, okay, but then where does the magic come from? Like, what is magic? Is there a limited amount of magic in the world? Is it like a well? And so for me, the idea is always like, magic is like within the concept of the mortal plane, magic is the drawing forth of energy or creatures or whatever from one of the other elemental or ethereal planes. Is sort of within my world the explanation for magic. So when we talk about random monstrosities existing in the world, what that is a creature that has somehow been drawn through into the mortal plane in such a way that it is now a shadow or just like a weird homunculus version of maybe what it was within its original plane of existence, right? And so that's kind of the idea of what a monstrosity is to me. It's like a creature that has almost experienced some form of strange, crazy, magical radiation that has warped it from what might have originally been a more normal and digestible, not literally, but, you know, mentally digestible form. You know, that's like the idea, you know, so it's like the idea of a blink dog. Is like blink dogs are basically dogs that were impacted by one or more of the different ethereal planes and have been sort of accidentally imbued with the magical ability to plane walk, essentially. Like that's kind of where I go with everything. And that's kind of what my world is. And so as far as like being in the recovering stages, you know, like I always set it up in here because it gives a really good excuse for there to be like a whole lot of strange stuff that just exists in the world. It gives an excuse for all these weird things. It gives an excuse for the world to be very dangerous without it being like completely so oppressive that players would die immediately. Right, it's sort of the idea behind it. So it's like they're in these recovering stages where it's like there's still a lot of dangerous things there, but unless intentionally being drawn in, there's not a whole lot of new dangers popping up, is sort of the idea. And so it's like that kind of gives the excuse of if players encounter and like as part of a side mission or a campaign or whatever, they repair part of this world. It's like that's why it's not just going to constantly stay bad or get worse. It's like it gives them the opportunity to actively fix things. It's sort of the idea for it. But yeah, so that's sort of why I've elected this type of world and why I stick with it the way I do. But yeah, so let's see here. Eventually, tribes began encountering these tears and the monstrous creatures brought forth from them. Even for the war-driven Leonin people, many of these creatures were horrific and unimaginable to the people, presenting danger they had never known in their lives. This confused and upset the Leonins, who until this point had largely ignored the actions and existence of anything beyond their planes. So yeah, so it's like startles and upsets them, and so like that's gonna cause, it's like that sort of like, whoa, what is going on? There's all these weird things in the world. So like for them, it wasn't quite the same process, because in much of the world, what happened is all these horrible monsters came out and just kind of decimated tribes and everything like that, decimated cities and villages, and everyone fled to the major cities. The Leonin, being more nomadic and more widespread, didn't really have those types of events. Maybe one or two tribes were immediately wiped out, but largely speaking, they didn't really notice it until suddenly they were traveling in the plains and they saw some weird, bizarro, nasty, 8-limbed gorilla the size of a house or whatever, and they were like, what is this? And so it's like, so for them, that was kind of more so the experience. So less jarring and immediate, but still traumatic in a way. The tearing of the fabric and the fissure. Yeah, it's a very common trope within worlds. I mean, it kind of fits the whole. It really does also fit the. Sorry, I gotta quickly log into something here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry. But yeah, it's a very common trope, and you see it a lot. Like, it's some sort of apocalyptic event. That gets referred to in some ways, in some way, shape, or form by all of the people that are left behind after this big event. The apocalypse, the shattering, the unhinging, as I do, the big boom. I don't know, like all kinds of different things. It's a very common trope, because it really is just kind of a convenient setup for, like, the world was as we once understood it, and then it wasn't. Bum bum bum. Like, it's a very useful trope to work with, and I'm 100% recognizant of the fact that it's almost cliche, but I'm okay with it. There's a reason that cliche things get cliche, and that's because they work. They serve the purpose that we need them to serve. They do it well. They do it better than most other ideas that exist out there. That's why that one becomes cliche. But yeah, it's that's kind of the world. That's the world that they live in. Let's see here. So let's see here. This fear drove sharp changes in Leonin society. Previously eager to keep their tribes and tribal histories separate, the tribes began to band together for the sake of safety. Previously nomadic, the Leonin made the decision to establish a central defensible city. And that's it. And I know it's poor grammar to use "and" to start a sentence, but that's okay. Yeah, cliche, but everyone spices it in their own ways, and that keeps it interesting. Exactly. That's like that's kind of like the important thing. Is it's fine to use something cliche, but you want to add some like flavor to it. But as long as you add good flavor to it, people are usually willing to do it. Because the thing about it is too, people, especially when it comes to stories, like you see it in all kinds of different art, right? I mean, it's what makes people, largely speaking, all of us like roughly the same types of art, or at least makes art, capable of being widely enjoyed, whether it's music, movies, TV, books, whatever. Humans like pattern. We like predictability, at least to a degree. Like, even if we're surprised, we like that surprise to come at the right time, right? We like patterns. We like predictability. That's why every song written goes verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Like that's why that everything does that. That's why we have chord progressions that are largely the same, and people just add a different solo to it, right? And stuff like that. People like patterns. It gives us something to cling on to. It gives us something to feel like we're in control, and humans just like that. And I don't mean that as a dig, or that like, oh gosh, stupid humans and their monkey brains, because I'm 100% the same. 100% the same. One of my favorite genres of music is pop punk. There's very few things as formulaic as that, right? We like pattern, and that's okay. It's just, that's what it is, and it's good to keep that in mind when you're writing, because that's how you can make sure you write something that your players are going to like, Yeah, exactly. Too much chaos is scary. We like a little bit of chaos to spice things up from time to time, but, keep it in reason. At any rate, let's see here. Leonin made the decision to establish a central defensible city, and perhaps most drastically, most drastic of all, many of the Leonin people began turning to the gods for answers. Yeah, and that's something that's drastically new for them. Many different I guess I'll say churches. That's kind of like churches in quotes. It's not like I don't want people to think about like the ringing bells and the cross, but it's like churches, you know. Many different churches began to arise as different people claimed to gain different insights. There we go. Over time, some grew in prominence, while others faded away. Let's see here. I put an A in there. All right. While others faded away. Churches, chapels, or temples. Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm using church kind of like the way people say like the organization of the church, right? Sort of like as more of like an entity as opposed to a structure. And it's, I don't know. Maybe I'll edit it later. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Over time, some grew in prominence while others faded away. Others faded away. Let's see here. I want to say one day, though, something happened that would unite all Leonin in the worship of the dragons. Let's see here. One night, while praying to Bahamut. I love using Bahamut. Bahamut's one of my favorite deities to use. And there's very little reason to it beyond the fact that I think dragons are rad, and I like that Bahamut's like a good dragon. And that's just it. But it's like, I follow them a lot. And I think it's also because just in general, maybe it's because I just have always been attached to the idea that I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. But I love the existence of dragons in this world. I love the concept of dragons being these creatures that almost serve as a bridge between ethereal and mortal, right? Because they are so connected to the different planes of existence from like Tiamat and Bahamut and all of that. And because the dragons have such a wide range of personalities and desires, and all that kind of stuff, there's just something about their existence that fascinates me. I love them. I love the dragons. I love using them, which means I dip into the Bahamut well quite a bit. Let's see. One night while praying to Bahamut, exactly. Praise the platinum dragon, father to all good dragons. 100%. Always look for the 5 golden birds? Is that what it is? Is that one of his symbols? I can't remember how many. I know there's like the yellow or the golden birds, but I forgot how many there were. If it was like 5 or 7, it was based on the number of his disciple dragons. I don't know. Whatever. That's a different lore than what I'm writing right now. Let's say one night while praying to Bahamut, one worshipper received a vision. Received a vision of an egg forgotten among the ruins of an ancient city. Forgotten. City. I don't want to reuse the word forgotten in the same sentence. Is the struggle here? Lost. Lost even long before the unhinging. Let's see here. This Leonin told his fellow worshippers Oops. No, I want 2 L's, not 2 O's. His fellow worshippers of his vision, and soon an expedition was established. This band of explorers, found the egg and brought it home. For, I don't know, I kind of want to say for years. For years. Let's see, for years. For years they cared for the egg, believing, believing, gosh dang it. Apparently I'm not allowed to spell the word believing properly today, so I'm just gonna not even try. Let's see here. They cared for the egg, believing that one day it would hatch. Despite many naysayers. Is that, how can we say, do I need to like make it one word maybe? Or maybe naysayers isn't officially a word. Oh, there we go. Okay, so many naysayers claiming it was simply a decorative rock. But one day the dedication was rewarded, and a dragon hatched from the egg. What do we name the one guy? We already have our dragon's name. Eodris. That's right. Eodris. That's a cool name. I like that name. Eodris. Let's see here. Hatched from the egg. Thus, Eodris was born. The Leonin people. Let's see here. Look away for 2 seconds and wrote a book. Yeah, I got busy. We got busy and we're writing. I wish I could write this much in literally 2 seconds, though. That would be great. That'd be great. Let's see here. Okay, so the Leonin people. Excuse me. What was I gonna say? Leonin people, in awe of this new dragon, banded together in raising the creature, teaching it of the history of the plains and the importance of returning it to its former balance and glory. Let's see here. Well, we can refer to it by name. We already established name. Eodris took this to heart. Yeah, Eodris took this to heart, and once grown, took this to heart, and once grown, made the protection of the Golden Wind Plains his own purpose in life. Boom, there we go. Alright. The Leonins, in awe of, let's see here, the Leonins, we'll just say, continued their worship from there, offering Eodris gifts and praise in exchange for his efforts in making the plains a safe and hospitable home once again. Boom, there we go. Alright, there's our Leonin history. I think that's kind of all we need for the history there, right? That gives us an idea of where they came from. It gives us an idea of what they've been doing recently and what they're kind of doing right now. And then that gives us some ideas here about what we can, how we can structure this. So the next parts, and I don't think I'm going to dive into this today. I think that's actually kind of like a good stopping point. So I'm just going to kind of chill out here and just kind of, maybe spew down a couple bullet points on this page or maybe some other pages. But, we're getting close to that 1:30 o'clock timeline. That is when I end the writing stream, so I can take a break and then go into the video game streams. But for the last few minutes, I kind of want to just maybe do some little bullet ideas, write down some other ideas, and maybe think about what we could work on next time. Because I think that's a really good chunk of stuff to have figured out for one session. That's a really good amount of work for about an hour and a half of writing. I'm really pleased with that, actually. Since we're coming up with stuff from scratch. I'm pleased with that. One thing I do want to do here, let's see, actually, I'm trying to think about the best way to put it. I think actually putting it in history would be a good one. We'll put it in history, even though it's not really history. One thing, I want to add a section to this, and this might end up being something that I add to the template as a whole, honestly, because I'm thinking about it, and I want this to be part of pretty much any faction, and I didn't put it in there, and I'm kind of surprised at myself for not having put it in there. I want to put in a section that's about like where they're going to go, what their goals are. I'm going to say present and future is what I want to do. And it's like not actually part of their history, but I think that's the best place to put it because it's kind of meant to be about like what do they want their timeline to be eventually. And so I want to use this as a place to just kind of put their goals and everything, because it's a really important part as far as like the role play of any faction or any enemy or what have you. I think that's a really important part of it. So yeah, so for the goals, I'm just going to put some bullet ideas here. Goals. Reclaim the Golden Wind Plains from... yeah, exactly, Lunar. Discuss their ambitions. Because like that's a really important part of having a faction for a campaign, right? Is making sure that you understand what the faction and therefore members of that faction are going to think about whatever the players do, right? Because if you have an idea of what they want to accomplish, then it's like, like I was saying before, if the players then do something that helps that goal, then the faction will like them and will be more agreeable to them. If the players do something that goes starkly against that, then we know we've got some enemies there, right? And so it just makes it easier, and understanding your factions that you're creating is a really important part of ad-libbing too, right? Because the players approach and are like, oh, well, we thought maybe we would do this to cut a deal with you. If you know what the faction's goals are, you know how to respond to that. Because you don't want to blindly say yes or no just for the sake of moving things along. You want to actually kind of create, like, does this make sense? Is this something that would actually work? Would, if the players were like, oh, well, we'll give you 3,000 gold if you let us build our pathway. I mean, that's a pretty good chunk of money. But it's like understanding what the Leonins and sort of by deciding what the Leonins want, that kind of lets us understand what Eodris wants, since Eodris is kind of like, he's influenced by the Leonins more than anything. Even though the Leonins worship him, they raised him, and so he wants what they want. He wants to do right by them. Even if they view him as being some sort of higher power, he wants to work. He wants to please them, and he wants to serve them. So by understanding what they want, that helps us understand what Eodris wants. So if the players were to come in and be like, "Here's 3,000 gold, can we build our pathway?" Eodris is going to be like, "No, I'm not selling out the balance and the history and and the beauty of the Goldman Plains, the land of the people who gave me life and raised me. I'm not selling that out for the cost of like a single ship. Like, no way. That's ridiculous. It's insulting, right? It's like by understanding those goals, those motivations, we understand how as DMs we can react to those types of things, you know. So that's an important part of it. It's a really important part of it. So yeah, I want so their big thing is reclaim the Goldwyn Plains from all creatures resulting from the unhinging. They also do want to protect the plains from new people that encroach. So it's like, yeah, so it's, you know, they might have historically not really thought much about other creatures, but at this point in time, because their perspective has changed and they've seen how messed up things can get, they really want to preserve their plains. And so they don't want all kinds of industry and stuff coming into it. So when they see like humans or dwarves starting to come into the area, they're kind of like, no, that's not cool. You guys tend to really damage areas. We don't want you here. Please leave. You know, that's kind of the idea there. So I think that's good. Let's see here. Actually, I want to say, let's see here. Presently trying to return to more nomadic lives. So it's like they're trying to recover from that. They don't really like being in like a tight quarters city. I'm gonna put a note about that. City was out of necessity, not desire. Prefer to roam rather than stay cooped up. Cooped up within walls, within guarded walls. So it's like they kind of want to be able to achieve that, and so to do that, they're kind of doing those two things. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, I think that's good. I don't know that there's a whole lot else that I really feel like would be important to add to them, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think that's good. One thing I did think of though here is I'm gonna, as leadership here for the Leonins. No, I don't want all of it. God damn it. Okay. No, just give me this one. Okay, bullet that. Oh, I see what I did that. Yeah, we want that there. Okay. So leaders, I'm going to put Yodris there. And we're just gonna put like, well, we'll put a Yodris there, and we'll say, though not directly a leader of the city, and he, well, I don't know how humble the Yodris would be. He's a little spastic, so he might not really be humble. I don't think he would like be like, yes, you must worship me, but I don't know that he would be like, oh, stop. He'd probably be oblivious to it, honestly. Directly the leader of the city. The direct leaders of the Leonin city. Leonin city. Look to his words and actions for guidance on how the tribes should be living. Boom. And so you just give like a little blurb like that. I think that's good. Just to add that there, just so we don't forget, like that's kind of where this tribe is born from, in essence, is them, you know, just sort of being proud in their worship and their following of Yodris. That's their jam. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I think that yawn is telling me it's time for me to go ahead and take a break here before I keep going with the next stream. So, yeah, we're only 5 minutes out from the stopping point, so I think that's fair. So, yeah, thank you everyone who stopped by. This was a really fun session. A lot of good conversations and good ideas coming from people. I appreciate all of you. It's so much fun. Anyone, mentioned it earlier, but anyone who is interested in continuing conversations, continuing to share ideas, beyond just the small window of when I'm streaming, I do have a Discord, and it's small. But the idea is that we can slowly grow it into a strong community of, you know, people sharing D&D homebrew ideas and all that kind of stuff. I'm really bad at moderating a Discord server, so it's clunky, and I'm learning as I go. But I promise I'm doing my best to kind of set this up and build a community for us. So if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to find the link on my channel. You'll need to go in there and get yourself verified just by, you know, on the verification page, just sharing with me what your Twitch name is. That's just to make sure that I don't get brigaded by bots ever. I don't think it's a huge risk right now, but one day, you never know. And bots don't really care. They're just looking to mine data. So yeah, working on trying to get that growing. So if you want to be part of it, by all means, sign up for that. Let's see here. Other points of business. I am going to be streaming tomorrow, same time for the writing, and Mass Effect. But we're talking about writing streams right now, so I will be streaming tomorrow, Friday, and I think I'll probably end up streaming on Saturday too. The timeline of when I stream on Saturday tends to be a little up in the air because I do have training in the mornings, and that tends to run late depending on how much energy we have. So might be sooner, might be later, but I am planning on streaming on Saturday as of right now. So you know, look forward to that if you want more. I do upload the VODs too, so I have them on the Twitch channel. They keep them up as long as Twitch allows me to, and then I do also export them over to my YouTube channel. That's there. I really do almost nothing with the YouTube channel. I'm really bad at managing it, but there is an archive of all the past stuff. So if you wanted to go back and look at any other part of this process of working on this campaign, or any projects I've worked on prior to this campaign, there's a growing backlog of videos there, so feel free. I think that's everything that I have. I don't know. Like and subscribe because of algorithms or whatever. I don't know. I'm really bad at self-promotion. I'm trying to be better. That's why I'm like trying to go through a mental checklist here of like all the self-promotion stuff, because I'm so bad at it. I don't care about trying to be famous. I just like sitting here and chatting with other people that have cool ideas about stuff and cool thoughts about video games and stuff like that. So I don't know. At any rate, again, thank you so much for the people who stopped by. I appreciate each and every one of you. You guys are what make this really fun and are the reason why I keep streaming as opposed to just writing all alone in silence. This is so much more enjoyable to do it this way. I have so much fun doing it. So thank you so much for stopping by. Anyone who is watching the VODs after the fact, I appreciate your support too, even if you're not here in live and in person. I still appreciate each and every one of you. I'm going to take a 15-minute break, and then I'll be back on to do some video game streaming. I am playing Mass Effect 2. So if you want to hang out and chat about other things beyond D&D, or even if you want to keep talking about D&D, I'll be back on maybe in about 15 minutes. I usually like to take a 10 or 15-minute break just to rest my voice just a little bit. But then I'll be back to do that for a couple hours. So if you want to stick around for that, feel free. If you're not interested in that, you're really just here for the D&D stuff, then I totally understand. I will not be offended. You know, so, but either way, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate each one of you. You're cool people. Genuinely, I mean that. You're cool people. And yeah, whether I see you in 15 minutes or tomorrow or next week or whatever, I'm glad you're here, and I'm excited to see you next time. So I'm going to end the stream now once I find the end stream button. There it is. There it is. Yep. Okay, we're going to end the stream right now. No, oh wait, hold up. Right now.